In this video, we are going to be using the shape tools to create a variety of simple vector shapes. And in the next video, we'll learn how to compound simple shapes to create complex shapes. This is a learning by doing tutorial, and I will encourage you to follow along and try out what we are doing. You will need to download and open this document so you can follow along. I have a download link for you in the description section below this video. As in the previous videos, we are going to be covering quite a lot and in quite some detail. If you wish to skip to specific points in this video, you can do so. It is very simple. The topics covered in this video are listed in the description section along with their timestamps. Clicking on the timestamp takes you to that part of the video. I invite you to use that to jump back and forth on the video timeline. To make sure you have the same interface like I do, come up here to View and scroll down to make sure White is activated. Next, to be sure all these bars are shown, come up here to Show Height and make sure all the bars are checked. So if we come over to the toolbox on the left, we can see some shape tools shown as icons. If we hover over each icon, we can see that each one represents a family of shapes. If you click on an icon to activate it, you can see the Tools control bar changing accordingly to show you more possible shapes and more functions you can use. We are going to use the Tools control bar somewhat, and it is very useful for controlling the final output of your shape. Now, let me guide you on how to use this worksheet. The worksheet comes with lots of shapes on a background layer, which we will use as guides to create similar shapes for practice. To notice how many layers are here, click on Layer, Layers. Note that I've locked the layer with the guides so you do not tamper with the objects there. On the upper layer, you can draw while using the dotted shapes on the lower one as a guide. Notice that the lock symbol is open. You can only draw on a layer when the lock is open. Okay, let us close this dialog on the right. To start drawing the shapes we see, let's zoom into the top row. So here we have 4 shapes. We have a rectangle, a square, a diamond shape, and a triangle on one of its tips. To create these shapes, we can use the Rectangles and Squares tool or simply Rectangle tool. Now come to the Rectangle tool in the toolbox and select its icon by pressing on it. You also notice that its shortcut is R. Once a shape icon is selected, notice how your mouse cursor changes to a crosshair and a miniature icon shape on the right. The crosshair will guide you to accurately place your cursor on the drawing canvas. For more accuracy, I have enabled snapping, so please make sure all these snapping controls are turned on. For letter objects, we will turn it off. This enables snapping icon toggles the snapping feature on and off. So with snapping on, I am going to bring my mouse cursor over to the corner of this rectangle shape till I notice a call to action reading handle to corner. So let's place our mouse cursor on the top left of the rectangle shape and click and drag toward the lower right side to draw a rectangle. As you click and drag in any direction, you will see an outline showing you the shape you will draw if you were to complete the process by releasing the mouse. So, using the guide on the worksheet, I am going to drag my shape until I see the dialog again, handle to corner, and I release the mouse button. Upon release, we can complete the process and we'll have the vector object. You will notice the cursor stays like before with a crosshair and a little rectangular icon to the right showing you the type of shape that can be drawn. Once a shape tool is selected, you can continue drawing as many shapes as you want. If I want to transform this rectangle, I can hit S on my keyboard or use the selection tool here on the left toolbox. Then I will click on the object to select. After selection, we'll have a bounding box surrounded by these double-headed arrows called handles. We have seen before that this object has a fill and a stroke. If you look here below to the left of the status bar, you can notice that the fill is yellow and the stroke is blue. Now Inkscape always remembers the properties of the object you drew before and takes this to the next object. I want you to click on this X on the color palette to remove the fill, and hold down Shift and click on black to give the stroke a black color. And right-click on this number to the right of this stroke paint here below and give the stroke a width of 0.75 millimeters. Now if we go back to the object, we notice that the selection made appear double-headed arrows around the bounding box. Now this is Inkscape's queue asking whether you want to make a change and giving you call to actions to facilitate your work. I can grab the object and move it around. If I want to scale it, I can hold one of these handles and drag a corner, and this is going to scale the object. And we are going to use some of these techniques in a bit. This is just a reminder of what you learned in more detail in previous videos. Now, when you have drawn an object, you would see other properties here on the Tools control bar. If I want, I can come here and change any of the properties. For example, I could change the value of the length or width here, or I could decide what happens with the object upon scaling. Let's move on to draw a square shape. Just like we have done for the rectangle, I'm going to come to the toolbox and click again on the rectangle tool. With the rectangle tool selected, I'm going to come over to my square shape, place my cursor on the top left, and then click and drag to begin to draw. And this time, I'm going to press and hold down the Control key on my keyboard. And this is going to scale my new shape so that I could make an integer ratio rectangle or a perfect square like so. And here is our square. Pressing and holding Control is going to allow you to scale any shape you are drawing, so you can create a perfect square, circle, or integer ratio object shapes. The next shape is a diamond. This time, we will not draw from scratch. We will duplicate and modify the square. Now, in Inkscape, we can always use duplicates or copies of shapes we have already made and make the modifications we want to obtain a new shape. This is a technique we'll use often to quickly and easily draw new shapes out of existing ones. So I'm going to press S on my keyboard to activate my selection tool, and I will click on our square to have it selected. So with the square selected, I'm going to press Ctrl+C to copy and then Ctrl+V to paste. And here we have our new shape away from its parent shape. I'm now going to select it and move it to sit on the diamond. And we have to rotate it so it looks like the diamond. This is quite simple. First, I will click on the object to select. After selection, we'll have a bounding box surrounded by these double-headed arrows called handles. If we click on the object a second time, this is going to activate the rotation function, and the double-headed arrows change orientation and become curved at the edges of the bounding box. Once selected, you can rotate the object clockwise or anti-clockwise. You can grab one of the curved arrows and move it one direction or the other to rotate the object. If you looked carefully, you will see a small cross at the middle of the object. This is its geometric center. Grabbing the curved arrow and rotating allows you to rotate around this center. Holding down the Control key allows the rotation to snap in angles of 15 degrees. And this will make it easy for you to get an accurate rotation. So I will hold down the Control key while rotating and allowing it to snap 3 times. And there is a diamond. I will select it and fix it on the dotted diamond on our worksheet by using the arrow keys on my keyboard. I can now click on the artboard to deselect. The next shape is a triangle on one of its ends. Again, we'll still use the technique of copying or duplicating an existing object and modifying it into a new shape. We are going to select the diamond we made earlier. With our diamond shape selected, I am going to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl+D on the keyboard. This makes a copy of a new object on the older one. We can now click on the object and drag away the duplicate. Pressing on the Control key allows us to constrain the path of the new object. We'll move it and place it into position like so that the triangle covers half of the diamond. Now, we have had a cursory introduction to paths in previous videos. Converting an object to a path is going to help us modify our shape very easily. So, with our new shape selected, we are going to come over to the menu bar and click Path, Object to Path, or use the keyboard shortcut Shift-Control-C. This will convert the object into a path. Once a shape exists as a path, I can click on one of these points called nodes and edit them individually. This gives you the flexibility to access and change any points or shapes in Inkscape. Now go to the toolbox and press the Edit Path by Nodes tool or use the keyboard shortcut N. Once we have this tool active, we can see the outline of our vector shape has changed. We can now see nodes that define the shape. To have a triangle, we need to delete one node. What I'm going to do is to click on this node on the far left to have it selected, and then press the Control key on my keyboard and then delete to remove that node. And we have created a new triangle shape. Awesome. So now that we have covered the rectangles and squares tool, let's move on to the next row and learn how to make shapes with the circles, ellipses and arc tool, which we'll simply call Ellipse Tool. So, as we did earlier, come to the Ellipse tool in the toolbar and select its icon by pressing on it. You'll also notice that its shortcut is E. We can now come down to our ellipse shape on the worksheet and click and drag to draw an ellipse. I am going to press on S to activate the selection tool. Then I will grab the ellipse and place it into position and pull it out to fit like so. And if we look at the tool's control bar, we notice that we have options for the radius, the start and end, as well as for drawing a slice, arc or chord. The next shape is a half ellipse. So, just like earlier, we are going to draw by copying or duplicating and modifying the full ellipse. We are going to select the ellipse we made earlier. With our ellipse shape selected, I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D on the keyboard. We can now click on the object and drag away the duplicate. Again, pressing on the Control key allows us to constrain the path of the new object. We'll move it and place it into position, like so. With our ellipse selected, we are going to press Shift-Control-C to convert the object to path as we saw earlier, and press N on my keyboard to activate the Edit Paths by Nodes tool. Once we have this tool active, we can now click on this node on the far left and have it selected and press the Delete key on my keyboard. This time we have nodes that were initially defining a curvature. So deleting one this way leaves us with a curvature. We also notice the nodes have handles. To make the curvature straight, I am going to hold down the Control key to constrain the angle of the handle and use the node tool to pull the handles into the nodes. And we have created a half ellipse shape by deleting a node of an existing ellipse and adjusting the curvature. Notice here I use delete, and I use this for curvatures. I will use Ctrl plus delete where the adjacent nodes already define a straight line like for the triangle above. The next shape is a circle. I am going to activate the Ellipse tool by using the keyboard shortcut E. Then come on to the dotted circle shape on the worksheet and click and drag to make a circle. As we learnt earlier under the rectangle tool, we can click and drag to create any sort of ellipse shape. And this is what we just did for creating an ellipse. But if we press and hold Ctrl on the keyboard, we can draw a perfect circle or an integer ratio ellipse just by how far we drag the cursor. I will drag to make a perfect circle like so. Once you have drawn the circle, press S on the keyboard to activate the selection tool. Then click on the shape to move it into position like so. If the shape is not the size you intended, you can move it into position and hold down the Control key and scale it to fit like so. So, the next shape is a semicircle. Like earlier, we are going to select this circle and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl-Z on the keyboard. We can now click on the object and drag away the duplicate to sit on this semicircle on the worksheet like so. And with our circle selected, we are going to press Shift-Ctrl-C to convert the object to path. Next, I am going to press N on my keyboard to activate the Edit Paths by Nodes tool. Then click on this node on the far left to have it selected and press the Delete key on my keyboard. Again, deleting one node this way leaves us with a curvature. We'll now learn a second way to make the curvature straight. I am going to press on Ctrl and Alt on the keyboard to constrain the snapping angle and the length of the handle respectively, and use the node tool to pull the handles towards the straight part of the semicircle. And there is our semicircle. For more ways to create semicircles, click on this video in the link above. Next, we will go one row below and we are going to use the Stars and Polygons tool. So, if I come to the toolbox and press on the Stars and Polygons tool or use its keyboard shortcut asterisk, I will see lots of options up on the Tools control bar. I am going to select regular polygon and set the number of corners to 3. With that set, let's come down and begin to draw a triangle. And the easiest way to do so is to start with your cursor somewhere in the middle of the example. I am going to click and drag out a rectangular shape similar to my worksheet. Then I will press and hold Ctrl on my keyboard and pull it to align with the example. I will press S to activate the selection tool and use the handles here to pull it into place. The next object is a 5-sided polygon. I am going to select the Polygon and Stars tool. Select regular polygon on the Tools control bar and set the number of corners to 5. Then I will come to the middle and click and drag out a polygon shape similar to my worksheet example. Press on S to activate the selection tool and move that polygon into position, just like we did for the triangle. Now let us press on the asterisk on our keyboard to activate the Stars and Polygons tool and give it 6 corners and draw a polygon with 6 corners. Press S to activate the selection tool and grab it and bring it into place. And we will repeat this procedure to create a 10-sided polygon. And while I am drawing this, I want you to notice that there are 2 options of the Tools control bar, randomized and rounded, which we have not changed so far. There is obviously more we can do, and I invite you to try that out. On the next row, we see different shapes here all looking like stars or a distorted one. Here we are still going to use the Stars and Polygons tool. So let us press asterisk on the keyboard and we will see the Tools control bar show up. I am going to select a star instead of a polygon and set the number of corners to 5. With that set, let's come down and begin to draw a star. And the easiest way to do this again is to start with your cursor somewhere in the middle of the worksheet example. I am going to click and drag it out to form a star, and we notice we can rotate it to any angle while drawing. However, if I wish to have more control, I will press and hold down the Control key on my keyboard to snap the rotating angle like so. Upon release of my mouse button, I will press S to activate the selection tool and move the object into position. So, the next shape is a star with 10 corners. To create the shape, I am going to activate the Polygons and Stars tool by pressing asterisk on my keyboard. Next, I will come up to the Tools control bar and increase the number of corners to 10. Then I'm going to come to the center to click and drag like so. Then release the mouse button. Upon release, I will activate the selection tool by pressing S and use it to move the shape into position. If need be, I will click on the object twice to have these rotating handles, which I can use to rotate so that it fits with the object on my worksheet. The next shape looks similar to the previous one, but the spokes are shallow and do not go deep into the star. I am going to press on asterisk on my keyboard to activate the Stars and Polygons tool. Next, I will come to the Tools control bar and increase the spoke ratio to 0.85. The number of corners is still like we said before. As said earlier, Inkscape always remembers the previous setting. Now, I'm going to come down to the center to click and drag out like so. Upon release, I will activate the Selection tool by pressing S and use it to move the shape into position. Like earlier, if need be, I will click on the object twice and grab these rotating handles to rotate so that it fits with the object on my worksheet. So, the next shape is a distorted star. Like earlier, we are going to select this star object and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl-D on the keyboard. We can now click on the object and drag away the duplicate to sit on the star on the worksheet like so. So, with our star selected, we are going to press Shift-Ctrl-C to convert the object to path. Next, I am going to press N on my keyboard to activate the Edit Path by Nodes tool. Then click on this node on the top to have it selected, and I will pull it down. Next, I will select this one to the right and pull it out. Then this one below and pull it down. And here is our new object. So finally, we have the rounded rectangular shapes, and here we'll be touching just the basics. Later under Path Effects, we'll see more ways of rounding corners. Let us quickly draw two rectangle shapes on the worksheet examples here. I am going to press on S to activate the Selection tool. Then click on the first shape to select. Next, I will press on N to activate the Node tool. You will now notice we have circle-shaped handle we can use for rounding the corners. I will grab a circle handle and move it just a tiny bit to adjust the vertical radius of the corner. And you notice that all four corners are rounded. Upon moving the circle handle representing the vertical rounding radius, a second additional circle handle has appeared now where the first one was. This handle changes the amount of rounding in the horizontal direction. To see how this affects the shape, let us move to the last object. Press on S to activate the Selection tool. Select the object. Press N to activate the Node tool. And then I will grab the first handle and pull it down to adjust the vertical radius. And grab the second one and pull it across to adjust the horizontal radius. Thanks for coming this far. In this video, we looked at how we can create and manage individual shapes in Inkscape. We learned how to create different types of object shapes. And we learned how we could transform and customize them to get new individual shapes. In the next video, we are going to learn how we can create complex shapes out of simple ones by compounding existing shapes and applying some path effects on them. If you liked this tutorial, you are sure to like the next one. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified when I upload the next one. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video.